Patient on a quiet Sunday morning that I make my way through the historic town of Sanford, Florida. I'm headed to the former location of the old Sanford Zoo.
It's amazing. The zoo used to be right here. Golly day. You know, you talk about memories. I'll never forget in 1973 coming here, being my first zoo directorship job right here on a 1.5 acre zoo in downtown Sanford. It was called the Sanford Zoo then. Now it's called the Central Florida Zoo. And you parked right here because there wasn't any parking lot. You had to park in the street. And right about in here, where this circular thing is, was the entry building, which the roof fell in once right on top of the cotton candy machine. And my wife Susie sold cotton candy there. We'd bring the kids here. Everybody kind of worked here. 7 days a week for 3 years I was here. It was unbelievable. The zoo was all fenced in with like a 15-foot high chicken wire fence. The animals were always getting out here. And then the zoo just covered this whole area here. There was no concrete at all. It was all sand. Everything was all sand. My office was right down there in that building, that brown 4 or 5 story building down there was my office, one room. And over here at the courthouse, this was here. This was a new courthouse. Everybody's real proud of the new courthouse. As a matter of fact, one day the courthouse caught on fire because the prison was in there, and they had to put all the prisoners out and they had to bring them over here and put them inside the pens, the animal pens, where they had to guard them for a few hours till we figured out what to do with the whole situation. But it was unbelievable here. You know, look at Lake Monroe right over there. Lake Monroe's right over there. I mean, what a beautiful spot. I love this zoo. I was only, oh gosh, I was only like 25, 6 years old. I just thought this was the biggest deal of my life to be director of a 1.5 acre zoo with 5 employees. Whew.
The zoo was so small, it led to an unusual pairing of roommates, a hippo and an Asian elephant. Now their old stomping ground is part of City Hall.
See this wall? That was the moat. That was in the center of the zoo. About 4 feet of water here, and out in the center there was a little concrete building. This is where Sobek and Geraldine, Fat Boy we called her, the hippo, lived in here all together. They were big buddies. That's something, a hippo and an elephant, buddies. And then on the center of this little building where they lived inside, they used to call it Monkey Island. But on the center of this thing was where I had my chimp shows. And every Sunday about 3 o'clock I'd have Rudolph Alexander. He was a chimp trainer, and I would be the announcer. I'd say, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the greatest chimp show on earth with Rudolph Alexander." It all went well for about a year or so. Then the chimp threw his little guitar down there, and the elephant took it, stomped it, ripped it apart. He got mad and quit, and so that took care of the chimp show. But this was the center of the zoo. This is what really, I think, turned the Sanford Zoo around and helped us raise a lot of money for the Central Florida Zoo. These 2 animals right in here.
Another hit was when I hired Herb Sullivan. He drove a big old Thunderbird, and he just loved snakes. Herb would go out and collect Florida snakes of all kinds. Then he would let people touch them and ask questions. It was very educational. People are fascinated by snakes, and it really helped with our attendance.
This whole side had about 5 big cages on it, and people would walk around like this and see all the animals. One of the key philosophies I had when I came here was that people would have fun and learn about animals. And I guarantee you people had fun watching this elephant and hippo and the chimps and the snake shows. You know, when I got here, about a couple hundred people would show up on a good Sunday, but when I left, there was about a couple of thousand before we moved the zoo. They had a ball.
By today's standards, the old Sanford Zoo was way behind the times, but we did the best we could with what we had.
Right down through there, right where those cars lined up, that was the cat cages. I'm talking about cages that you wouldn't put anything in today, but we had like jaguars, cougars, leopards, tigers, all down to this thing here. So you can imagine coming to this small 1.5 acre zoo. I mean, you had like all the cats, an elephant, a hippo, birds of all sorts, a show, and, you know, me, I guess.
There are things that I soon learned about being associated with a zoo. Day or night, there are calls to rescue or remove animals of all kinds, from catching problem alligators to dealing with pet snakes on the loose. All my adventures and misadventures were just part of the job. One time, an anaconda nearly took my finger off.
Oh, then there's a bear that got loose in Winter Park right down the road here. Stan Brock, the guy on Wild Kingdom, I went down and caught the bear. We did about $5,000 worth of damage to people's pools and everything when the bear went shooting through them and busting over everything, and then got in the guy's boat. So we tranquilized the bear in the boat, and then the boat kind of tipped over. It was a fiasco. But all these little things that we did, people would watch and say, wow, what's the zoo doing now? And that's the key to building any good zoological park, is that you want to always keep people guessing what's going to be at the zoo. A new animal habitat, a new educational program, a new animal birth. It's always got to be something. It's constant promotion because we're trying to teach conservation, which is a very, very, very serious business.
In Tennessee, Sue and our daughters, Kathleen and Suzanne, had grown quite accustomed to being around animals. So when we headed south for the Sanford Zoo, we couldn't have been any more excited.
Back in 1973, when I came here to be a zoo director, that was probably the most exciting, one of the most exciting days of my life. Even though I only had 5 employees in an acre and a half, to me it was just like making the pros or something in football or basketball. A lot of people gave a lot here, a lot of volunteers, and I'll never forget that. But there's the pride you have in seeing the zoo today, the new Central Florida Zoo, and of course the pride of just having people come to this old zoo. Money can't buy. Matter of fact, you know, the TV and all the stuff I do now is something. When I look back at my happiest days, they're right here in my 1958 Volkswagen, my 3 kids, and 2-room rental house, and gasoline about 35 cents a gallon.
Next up from Florida, a reunion with an old friend. And still to come, memories in the making. Just before I left the old Sanford, Florida Zoo, it had transitioned into the new and improved Central Florida Zoo. The year was 1975. The new zoological park was spacious and just down the road. While I was passing through Florida recently and traveling memory lane, I decided to head over to the Central Florida Zoo and see some old friends.
Hey, Sam. Sam, it's Jack. Remember me? It's been almost 30 years. Golly, day, you're still hanging out. Sam's doing pretty good, too. He's got a little baby up there.
The descendant of the Sanford Zoo is a shaded 70-acre animal park that follows a wooden boardwalk. If there's anyone who remembers the old days, it's Central Florida Zoo Director Ed Posey.
Now, is the hippo still here?
Geraldine the hippo has been here as long as I have, and she was here when you were here.
I gotta see her.
Well, she hasn't lost weight.
Come on.
You remember Geraldine, also known as Fat Boy. Along with Sobek the elephant, Geraldine was the center of attention at the old zoo.
Geraldine! My, you look like you've gained weight. And you couldn't feed her too much.
Well, she just needs to run more often.
Golly, day, look at that. God, remember when I used to stand up on top of that building? Remember that?
In her lighter years.
Man, she's gotten big.
She's probably one of the most docile hippos you'll ever see.
But now she must be about, what, 33?
She's at least 30 years old. At least.
Good night. Remember we moved her out here, took a big old crane?
It took a bulldozer and a big trailer.
Yeah.
And
horse trailer.
Big horse trailer. And she was a lot lighter then than she is today.
Well, she got natural water and everything,
Naturally
right?
flowing stream that comes through. She stays in here year-round. The water temperature is sufficient for her needs in the wintertime.
This hippo, you know, helped save the zoo, I think.
Absolutely.
This and the little elephant, remember?
Yep.
Everybody came to see this hippo because they were buddies.
They were buddies. Real closely aligned to each other. There was a real affection there. Kind of strange for hippos and elephants, particularly the elephant was an Asian elephant, but they were good friends.
Sobek the elephant is gone now, but Geraldine the hippo, the biggest link by far to the old Sanford Zoo days, is still going strong.
See you later, Geraldine. I'll be back before 30 more years, okay? Bye-bye. I can't kiss you today.
There were times at the old zoo when we barely had enough meat to feed the cats. With animal diets more enriched than ever, those days are in the past.
I can't believe it. The Siamese still here. This is a zoo 30 years ago. You're still here, too. Come here. Come here. Look here. Monkey biscuit. That's what we used to feed. That's about the only thing we used to feed. Remember all the produce I used to get you? All the old produce no one wanted? I let you eat as much as you wanted back then. I bet today they got you on special diet, so... Well, won't be 30 more years when I get back. See you later.
Not only has overall animal health improved, but so has the professionalism of zoological parks. Anymore, working in an environment like this is a sought-after opportunity.
Unlike today, where you have one opening, you have 2,000 people apply for it, we had openings everywhere because nobody wanted to work in a zoo. A lot of zoos are smelly, a lot of zoos are cages. That obviously has changed right now. The habitats of zoo animals are better than most people live. So back then, though, when I first came here, I didn't know any better. I just said we got to improve it because it can't get any worse. I mean, they were getting ready to close the zoo down and maybe build a new zoo, maybe not. So they said they were going to build it, and by golly, they did build the new Central Florida Zoo.
Next on Animal Adventures, Margot goes ape over her first job as a zoo director.
Well, if this tree could talk, he could tell some stories, I'll tell you that. He's original. He was here when I was here.
My days in Central Florida at the old Sanford Zoo are among the most memorable in my life. Your first job as a zoo director is something you don't forget.